Welcome to FOBtv, the future of business. I'm your host, Kevin Benedict, and I want to thank each of you for joining us today. My guest is Richard Skellett. Richard, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much for the invite, Kevin. Been looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Now, Richard, he's a future of work expert, entrepreneur many times over, and founder of the Digital Anthropology Campaign and Social Enterprise. So we're going to have so much fun talking about all these things, Richard. But before we jump into that, why don't you talk to all of us and give us a little bit about your background?
I'm Scottish, as you can tell by my accent, I hope. My father, he worked 70 hours a week as a rubber factory foreman. My mum, I think, must have been one of the early pioneers of the gig economy. She effectively had 4 jobs. I got my first job at 13 years old, and I kid you not, I was working 30 hours a week as a delivery boy. I would rush down after school and so forth. I never thought about my mum being a gig economy worker, as an example. I never kind of quite realised the impact that it would come as a result of that.
So how many companies do you have now? What's under your belt?
I've got more than 2 handfuls of companies. I don't have a job, Kevin. Right? This is what's quite interesting. Right? I don't have a job, so that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I've got basically the company spread all the way from research. So this is kind of looking kind of research around technology, people in business. And it goes all the way through to taxation.
Ah, how fun. So talk to me, we're all experiencing COVID-19 in our own very personal way. How's it impacting you and your organizations?
And I would say the biggest problem that we've got, because we have got a problem, we all have problems. I would say the biggest problem we've got is actually being able to reach out to the audience. And because digital anthropology, we're in a position to help organizations who are impacted by COVID. That's the problem. The problem is being able to actually kind of get through and get contact with people, because their organizations are very, very, very disruptive.
You wrote recently on LinkedIn that COVID-19 will transform the working landscape forever. What's your thoughts there?
Well, it's not just the working landscape. I mean, the whole future. It's the future work, the future businesses. That whole landscape now is absolutely disrupted. And linked into this is that we've got the aspects around AI, machine learning, RPA, robotics. So all of those things now are going to becoming very, very much more impactful. It's not us that I'm worried about, it's the most vulnerable. Because the majority of gig economy workers are very, very vulnerable. And as an example, what kind of security is there on a 0-hour type contract? How are you meant to provide your family and make sure that it's so those things are very, very, very concerning. And that's one of the reasons why I set up Digital Anthropology.
Yeah, and I've read a whole bunch of things that you've written over time, and you're expressing a great deal of concern for the workforce in light of these technology changes that look to displace many workers. What's the solution there?
The first thing that we need to be able to go off and do is have organizations that can encourage conversation, firstly. Most companies want to go straight into dialogue, and we don't get innovation from dialogue, Kevin. Innovation comes from conversations like this. And we need to find new ways of going off and doing things, don't we? Right. So one of the areas I'm kind of very passionate about is that we're all familiar with kind of technology being an enabler and technology architecture. And right now, what we're crying out for is we need to have a resource architecture model that sits alongside the technology or the digital architecture. Because without that, we've got some very, very severe problems if we're not able to marry those things up. And when I look at people, I feel that we've misled people And in the last few years, it really, I've really kind of figured things out much more clearly. Like quite clearly, you can see I'm a very passionate guy and I'm passionate about people, and you would expect me to say that people are assets. People are not assets. Why are we fooling people by telling them they're assets? It's not right. First of all, they sit on the balance sheet of a company as a liability. But the truth of the matter is, Kevin, is that there's a liability and an asset curve that people have. And it's so important for us to help people to understand that. This whole piece around kind of looking at this problem that we're faced with, well, one of the problems is that there's a liability and asset curve that each person has. And if they understand that liability and asset curve, what that means is that they'll get a better understanding of their own personal balance sheet. You and I have a balance sheet, the same way that a company has a balance sheet. So therefore, we can begin to think about that alignment. And what I would go off and say is that I think it's important to be mutable. And I think it's important for we as individuals, and what I mean by mutable, just to be perfectly clear, is that we've got to be in a permanent state of reinvention. That applies for you and I as individuals, as also it applies for companies. We have to be mutable.
You also have some strong statements. Here's one. We believe that it is morally wrong to see technology displace people without understanding the future social impact. Talk to us about that viewpoint.
Well, there's a number of things. Like as an example, earlier in the conversation, I touched upon my background. I'm a 13-year-old kid, and I go off and I'm picking up menial tasks. In fact, that job no longer exists, Kevin. We've got the work that we do. It could be done either by a machine, or it perhaps could be done by by a junior. Right? So we've got a choice here, haven't we? Do we go off and look at someone more junior, or do I go off and put some robotics into place to take away this stud? Hey, that's a choice it would make. Now, the thing being is that has a massive impact on our learning, on our drive. If I hadn't gone off and had that, those low-level jobs, those low-level jobs were not low-level for me. They were high-level. It was my start. So when we look at these thirds that we've got, i.e. the low-level jobs that can go elsewhere, the third, which is our table stakes, and we all have a natural drive. We all want down to that top third. That's the area we all make a difference in. Of course, we all want to get into that area. We can get paid more, as an example, for doing that work. But when we look at the financial model that's in place at the moment, the way that companies operate, we actually pay someone the same amount of money, no matter where they're operating in those thirds, isn't it? So it doesn't matter if I'm doing something which is quite junior, I'll go off and do something that's exceptional. So therefore, we need to be kind of thinking about this whole piece around people, because if we just go off and automatically accept that, hey, let's bring technology into place, and the numbers are there's 800 million jobs that are affected as a result of AI and robotics and machine learning. It's really scary. It's a really scary position. We're not I hear people talk about we're in the fourth industrial revolution. We're not in the fourth. Industrial revolutions go off and create mass employment. We're in the second digital revolution. In the second digital revolution, we're not going to go off and get net job growth. So what do we kind of go off and do about those kind of things? We need to kind of be thinking about the models that we need to go off and put into place regarding people in our business.